Okay, with Patrick McCarthy, Paraland, the Prologue animation film, played at the Fantasy Sci-Fi Film Festival. Really, really interesting, great film. I'm just gonna state your bio because it's an interesting bio. It says that you went from being a comedian sleeping in a car to becoming a storyboard artist at Family Guy.
hmm
So that's quite the leap. I'm assuming you're doing stand-up.
I was when I first moved to LA.
So where are you from originally?
I'm originally from Virginia.
Okay.
I went to Virginia Tech and studied creative writing there. And then upon graduation, I didn't really have access to making films or any of the things that I knew I wanted to do except stand up. Like you don't need equipment to go to a comedy club and get up on stage. You just need to write something out. So I did a lot of that, did that for a year and was getting more and more like paid gigs. So then I kind of just took the show on the road, packed my bags in my car, and moved out to LA. But I didn't quite have a plan yet. So I was like, all right, I'll figure it out when I get there, even if I have to sleep in my car. And that lasted about like 2 months,
Okay.
like 2 months that I was in my car. And then it's like as I kind of got situated in LA, I was like, oh, I don't need to do stand up. I can find people and things that let me do the crafts that I wanted to do. Right. So
Okay.
that's how I started down the animation path. Like I didn't study animation. I kind of like self-taught myself that.
So, but it's more so stand up wasn't your passion per se. It was just something that you love storytelling. You love doing like something creative.
Yeah, I love writing in all forms, and I just thought stand-up was so fun, but I never really liked the idea of committing fully to it for a number of reasons. One, uh, the you know how each kind of profession has their entry level, then their kind of like middle class level, and then like elite level. It's like when you're in that middle class level of stand-up, you're just on the road 24/7.
Mm.
Like you're just traveling around, and I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to be sleeping in hotels and motels all the time. And also, it's just when I looked at comedians out there, a lot of there was great comedians saying the things that I would want to say on stage. So what am I doing if they're already saying what I want to say, right? It's like, Bill Burr's got it, Dave Chappelle's got it. What do they need me for,
Yeah.
right? But in terms of storytelling in other realms and animation stuff, I see opportunities. I see like, okay, I can find a niche, a place for myself in there.
So how did you get into storyboarding then?
Well, so that was a fun little accident that I've been making my own animations. I made a Stewie Potter. So I made a Family Guy, Harry Potter mashup thing, but it was kind of like a portfolio piece for myself that Family Guy saw. And they reached out to me and they're like, "Hey, like, what's up? What are you trying to do? Do you want to work here? What's up?" And I just was so rogue about it all. I made it all on my laptop, but I made friends with some of the people there. And one of the storyboard artists was like, "Dude, like, you could be a storyboard artist." And I was like, "Oh, what does that even mean?" Learned about the profession, learned the software, and kind of realized that I'd wanted to be a writer, and I still write, right? But like the
Yeah.
trajectory of the writer and getting to showrunner status, there's a similar track under storyboarding. So it's
Yeah.
like you become a revisionist, storyboard artist, director, supervising director, and then you can be a showrunner. So I'm like, all right, like so I'm getting opportunities on this side as opposed to the writing side. So let me just tackle that and take advantage of that. And so then yeah, I eventually started working at Bento Box and then over at Family Guy.
All right. So let's go back. So you did like a kind of a fan fiction, like Family Guy meets Harry Potter, which is obviously pulp culture, great idea. So was it on YouTube? Did they go viral? Like how did
hmm
you find it?
Yeah, I posted it on Reddit and I learned just the love and vitriol of the Reddit community. And so I posted it a couple times on there and finally found the right message and it made the front page of Reddit and it got over 1 million views when it hit that front page. And then like
Was it a YouTube like embedded code? Like did you put on Reddit?
yeah, it was just a link from YouTube that I put up
So
on.
basically, but it's gaining track. What I'm saying is it's gaining traction on YouTube because it's getting 1 million followers on YouTube. So you're grabbing the kind of like the kind of algorithm on YouTube as well while you're doing that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Like for years after, because this was a while ago now, for years after I posted that, around Christmas time, views would ramp up because I don't know why, but Harry Potter is just so associated with Christmas.
Okay.
It's like Stewie Potter would always get like a good little spike in viewership around that time.
Okay. So then you just did that for fun, but you didn't have any like dream, like you just did it because you wanted to do it, I guess, right? There was no like grand plan.
The plan was that I wanted to double up, like, because I said I was writing and I was also animating. I was like, oh, I could write a spec script, or I could like put together a portfolio of pieces, or I could write a pre-existing show and then animate what I wrote and like just do the whole production value. So it's kind of like a spec animation. And I
Yeah.
did that with South Park. I did that with Family Guy. And then I kind of went ahead and did like a Game of Thrones prequel. So those were kind of like my main like portfolio pieces that I did. And then once I got the job at Family Guy, I kind of hunkered down and was like, okay, like I want to focus on my own original property, and that's what Paraland
Gotcha.
was. Yeah.
So you can go on your YouTube channel. So it's got 2.8 million views right now as per
Mhm.
this podcast. So you go to your YouTube channel, you got a lot of subscribers. You got the Stewie Potter series, and you got the South Park cartoons. So these are I always like the South Park guys don't like the Family Guy guys, but the Family guys don't like the South Park guys. But you kind of merged the two, I guess, as a fan.
Well, I mean, because I understand like Trey and Matt's position on Family Guy,
Mhm.
but uh, it's been running just as long as South Park has. Like
Yeah.
like you don't suck and last over 20 years,
But they
right?
call it like
Like
lazy storytelling with like the vignettes, I guess, right? With
yes, but
yeah,
that was never Family Guy's intention. Family Guy never set out and said, we're going to tell the ultimate story of a family. No, they said,
yeah,
we're going to make you laugh. And they did
yeah.
for decades, right?
Whereas like South Park, they're very strategic on their thematic. This every episode's got a key thematic of what they're trying to say.
yes. I mean, South Park is the kings of satire.
Yeah.
They're the best satirists since Jonathan Swift, right? Like they no nobody does it better.
Mhm.
And so I understand that there needs to be more consequential storytelling in order to get those points across. But with Family Guy, they're like, yeah, we'll kill a character one scene, they'll be back the next, or whatever we think is funny, we'll just make happen, even if it interrupts the middle of the story. Like
Yeah.
that.
Well, it's a matter. It's an argument. We'll get into some. I just want to finish this, wrap this up. But they're only doing like what 10, 12 episodes a year, and sometimes they take a long time. Where Family Guy's like it's network television. It's still a thing, right? Where they got to do 24 episodes a year.
Mhm.
They got a huge writers room where it's more about Trey and Matt. They got a writers room, but it's more about their vision, right? Where Family
Mhm.
Guy, they're turning out it's a machine. It's a different kind of television show, the way it's
Yeah.
structured, right?
Yeah, and I mean, to be fair, Family Guy creates a much better ecosystem. Like, I'm not going to talk junk about sides, but it's like,
Yeah,
Trey and Matt, they love doing their like 6 days to air, so they got this chunk where they're making things, and then the rest of the year they're off. Whereas Family Guy has this nice ecosystem. We're all kind of working year round,
yeah,
so like everybody who's a part of Family Guy gets to kind of actually have a life. I have a steady job, and I've had a steady job for the last 5 years thanks to the amazing work that they do and keep churning things out, right?
and you get to do this project on the side as well. You get to do your little passion project too, right?
Yeah, it's funny. It's like you can call it a passion project, but this is my onus. This is definitely what I came out here for.
Yeah. Okay.
So like
So
it's
your agenda project or your life's purpose project?
yeah, yes. Because I kind of came to the personal philosophy that it's like, as a writer, I may only get to tell one story. A
Yeah.
lot of writers are very fortunate if they get their story told,
Mhm.
right? So it's like for me, I'm like, okay, let me just pick one and put all my all into it, make sure it's as great of a story as I could possibly tell, and just like every ounce of energy that I have spare after Family Guy, I'm going to put into this and make sure it's what I would be proud of if it's all that people know me for, right?
When we get to your thing, I wanted to, you made an interesting point about like the ecosystem because you got like franchise shows like obviously The Simpsons, Family Guy, Survivor, Dancing with the Stars, The Bachelor. You got to remember that they're job creators, right? They're
Hmm.
creating families and houses and mortgages for a bunch of like thousands of people who are working on those sets, right? Like on those
Hmm.
post production and sound, all that stuff, and they're just yeah, they're creating jobs. They're basically helping people's lives, like you said.
Totally. Yeah. And I mean, if you have any young listeners watching or listening to this, I think something I didn't realize before coming out here is that there is such a thing as a middle class living within the industry. To
Yeah,
me, it was just kind of like you're either doing everything for free and then all of a sudden you're a millionaire and there's just nothing in between. But there's great jobs, there's great positions, there's great ways to live if you can just keep, chipping away at it and get in, in a nice spot on your journey, right?
yeah. But that like a lot, I know a lot of people work on film sets. They work on a film for like 3 months and they go to another film and they make a great living. But then, like not like you or you stay on, you guys stay on the same show. You're like a family in a sense. Pardon the pun,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah, I'm one of the newbies at 5 years.
yeah. Have you met the Grandmaster yet, Mr. McFarlane?
I've seen him around just a couple of times because he just sends everything in, and we haven't been in the office since the pandemic.
Yeah.
But
Oh, you still haven't been there. You still haven't been back.
no, there's like the directors, they've been there forever. They don't want to go back, and I don't blame them. A lot of them live whatever outskirts,
Yeah.
and as a board artist, it's easy for us to do our job. We jump on a call with the director,
Yeah.
he tells us what we need, and then we go do it. So they're getting in new offices they're downsizing the offices because they plan on not having everybody come back, right? They're like, you don't clearly we're functioning just fine, which is a great precedent to set for other industries.
Gotcha. Yeah, 100%. But it's yeah, that's a whole other can of worms. Yeah, and like you said, like I'm assuming he just voices his all the roles that he does at home or whatever, and then emails them over, I guess, right? In
Yeah.
today's world.
Yeah. And then the times I have seen him have been at like the 400th episode party. Like he doesn't really come to like the Christmas parties. That's more so for staff. He has his own Christmas party. Maybe one day I'll get an invite to
Yeah.
that.
Well, let's hope so. All right, so let's talk about this. Let's talk about Paraland, the prologue. So it's sort of
Sure.
kind of saying that you're going to make more films of this story, I guess, right?
Hmm.
Is
Yeah,
that the beginning?
absolutely. So Paraland is a fantasy epic adventure series about a trio of heroes. And if you watch the trailer, you get introduced to them. But underneath the surface, it's really just about me, my best friend, and my wife, and the craziness we find ourselves getting into. So trying to like anchor this kind of epic fantasy adventure with something real, that it's almost kind of like I feel like I live in Curb Your Enthusiasm in some ways. Just like my my sense of heightened sense of justice, and that I don't shut my mouth when I should. And and so it's like kind of taking those life experiences and running it through a filter of a whole new fantasy world that people can enjoy. So, we before we jumped on this call, it kind of talked about people talking about their own lives. I wouldn't want people to just hear the story of my life. I'm like, okay, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself and my experiences, but I also went ahead and built a whole new fantasy world like Zelda or Elder Scrolls that you can
Yeah.
enjoy, research, come up with fan theories about, while also doing a little bit of personal touch.
So it's 2D animation.
Mhm.
And so is that something that you're passionate about, this type of this old school animation?
Yeah, and I mean, I became a self-taught animator. I didn't think when I was younger that I would necessarily be doing animation, but with this project, I'm doing a combination. The backgrounds are 3D because I want the world to feel like a video game, like or a video game fantasy world, and the characters are 2D for a couple of reasons. One, it just makes them more colorful, makes them pop, but also because 2D, it's so easy to be expressive and exaggerate things,
Mm.
So just trying to have that combination. Like if the backgrounds are 3D, we can do cool camera angles. If the characters are 2D, we can do cool posing and expressions and stuff like that. So trying to utilize the best parts of whatever medium we're integrating into this. But yeah, I think it's just a also a fun way to kind of acclimate any kind of new people to animation instead of going too extreme in one form or another, kind of like something that everybody can kind of feel comfortable with as they watch.
So then it's funny too, right? You tell funny stories, like to be basic about it.
Yeah, I think stylistically it's whatever emotion we're going for, we're just going for that emotion and then comedy.
Yeah,
So if we're going for excitement, there's not going to be any jokes while we're trying to be exciting. And then once we finish that, then we can have all the jokes that we want and have a lot of comedic situations that as the story plays on, like the trailer itself ends with some comedic banter, but it's not like some like home run hit, like knock you out of your seat laughter. It's just more so like, just so you know, now that you've seen all this cool action fantasy, it's
yes.
like there will also be comedy.
But it's almost like you're not taking it, like, is it fair to say you're not taking it so seriously, like this world?
Hmm. Well, not taking ourselves too seriously.
Yeah,
I
okay.
think it's like when you take yourself too seriously, your life is a drama. But when you realize that the things that happen to you aren't that big of a deal, it's a comedy, right?
Gotcha. And so this, obviously you're a storyteller. You wrote the screenplay, like you said, you did stand-up comedian comedy. So obviously you know how to tell how to write scripts. Do you remember when you had this idea? Well, how long ago you had the idea for this project?
Yeah. And by the way, you ask such great questions. You're so attentive. I appreciate it. That uh, Paraland kind of has evolved over time. That the first iteration of it was over a decade ago when I moved out here, and on all I knew at that point is what I wanted a fantasy. I love the fantasy genre, and all that existed was the character that reflected me. But I was so fresh out of college that he was just kind of like a college bro. And then as I worked on new drafts and kind of developed more characters, then it's like then I met my best friend who became the best man at my wedding. Like then he became a character in there, and it was like kind of just me and him going back and forth with each other. And then, you know, just a little over 5 years ago, met my wife, who's now the third character, and I'm like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
this is a trio, right? So it's just like each time my life changed and evolved, so did this story, and
Oh,
and it wasn't a
Brittany Cox is your wife?
oh no, she voiced Queen Fula.
Oh, okay,
She
gotcha.
but she captured the character perfectly, like because my wife picked her, right? Because
Okay.
actually, Brit,
Well, that's what I
the
thought you meant. I apologize. Go ahead.
oh
Yeah.
no, it's fine. It's just funny because my wife's not involved in the industry at all, and
Okay.
that's been a good thing for us, because it's like we both can encourage each other without there being any direct comparisons about anything. It's like, she gets a promotion, that's awesome. I'm cheering her on. I don't think like, why didn't I get a promotion? It's like,
Yeah.
no, everything's cool. So yeah, she's in a different industry, but it's just kind of the overall dynamic that we all had. Like she's very much joyous, energetic, fun, and then I'm kind of the rule follower, and then my buddy Philip likes to see how can he cause a little friendly chaos. What buttons can he press to get things
Yeah.
lighting up? And so that's how it evolved. It just like so I've been working on it for over a decade, but this version of it where it's, taken on this life has been the last 4-ish years.
And are you working on the second one right now?
I've developed the whole so the trailer that I made is the first 3.5 minutes of the pilot. And I've been building a team of animators, of writers, of actors, and kind of figuring out how are we going to because the industry is literally in flux as we speak. The industry is trying to figure out where it wants to go after the streaming wars is kind of nearing its end. But in the meantime, just kind of building up a team ourselves and I have the pilot written just actually literally just 2 days ago, met with our team of writers and did like a revision of the pilot. So finishing up that revision, and then I have the whole first season outlined, but I don't want to push too much further because I want to work with the writers. I have the structure for everybody, and then just kind of get everybody together and be like, all right, these are the base ideas. What are we thinking? So yeah, that's where we're
And,
at.
and then you started submitting the festivals and including ours. What did you think of what we sent the audience to you? What did you think of our audience had to say about your film?
Oh, it was really interesting. One, it was all women. It's kind of just funny because a action fantasy project like this would usually be more like a male demographic, whether I like it or not. But they were all very thoughtful. They were all very thoughtful. They were eager to give their full thoughts and impressions, and it's like it was really cool. It was really cool seeing what was always fun for me is to see people that I've never met, that I've never told a word about this
Mhm.
before, getting it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Okay, I have these intentions in my mind, and I hope these are the takeaways. And then to hear, these people I've never met before sit down and go, "This is what I took away from it." I'm like, "Yes, yes, that's what. Okay, good, good. That's what I wanted you to take away from it."
yeah.
So yeah, it was cool in that regard.
So I have a very unusual question, but I'm just curious because my son, who's 5, and he loves swords. So always
Hmm.
going around swords and like nobody's taught him swords. He just picks something up and he picks up sticks and he just it's like a natural instinct for humans or boys or whatever you want to say. So of course there's a sword is a huge kind of prop in your film. What
Hmm.
do you think? Well, like what's the sword? Why do you think that there's this fascination with swords is, and like obviously it's a big part of your film as well.
Hmm. Well, I mean, it has a lot of great symbolism, right? Like swords throughout, and that I mean, you've got like King Arthur's Excalibur, it's a symbol of royalty, of taking charge, of being a leader. It's like how many images are there of leaders pointing their sword into battle? It's like this is where we're going. So a sword is almost kind of like a metaphorical compass, right? And so with King Jim and his sword, it's it's kind of like a fantasy version of a lightsaber because a lightsaber is probably the coolest thing Star Wars ever gave us.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
know, it's
But
it's
this
it's
goes
a
back to like the pirates, like the movies of like the early 20th century, or even the books, the books of the 19th century of like action adventure. It's always swords, I guess, right?
totally, yeah. And that, obviously as a king character, it's important for him to have like an iconic sword,
Yeah.
but it's called the All Blade because the legend in the world is that the 12 gods all
Yeah.
put their power into it.
Yeah.
So it's also supposed to be a symbol of unity, right? Because one of the big themes of this show is that there's 12 distinct races, and we all need to come together and bring our diverse background and experiences to move forward. Because if it's a metaphor with America, like America is so cool that we're a melting pot, that we're not just a single culture. And so, you go around LA and you're having Mexican tacos on one corner, Japanese sushi on another corner. It's like you're embracing the, the heritage of so many and creating one great nation because of it.
And
So
the
yeah,
sword, the symbolism of the sword.
yeah, I think the sword tries to encapsulate that. It's really kind of a symbol of leadership.
Because
You know.
you're probably too young for this, but I grew up with in the 80s, and there's two TV shows. There was oh my God, there was He-Man, and then there was
Mhm.
Thundercats,
I
right?
watched both of those. I've watched
Yeah,
them.
they're both like very sword centric. The sword
Hmm.
was like almost metaphorically what you're describing, right? Where he was about not just the sword itself. Hello, sorry, I just lost you there for a second.
I kind of like pretended to pause as well. I was
Yeah, that was weird.
like,
Never happened before. That was bizarre. So yeah. So you're just going to keep doing your job, and then kind of do these not passion projects, these agenda, or kind of like this is what your life,
yeah,
what life's to be. You're married, and I guess you're on your way as a
yeah,
creator.
yeah. So pretty much I'm working at Family Guy, keeping my steady work, and then figuring out the next steps with Paraland because I'm pitching. I am pitching it, going to different networks. I've met with Hulu, 20th, HBO Max, and still trying to get in touch with some of the others, but also as I said, just recently did a revision of the pilot and just seeing about like, with each new season, they're looking for new projects and whatnot. So circling back around, but at the same time, kind of also tracking this, okay, if I were to make it myself, if I were to just go ahead and, I built up this team, let's just do it. So kind of just two-pronged attack. It's the traditional, let's just pitch to networks, and also the what does it look like if I were to animate it myself and with a team? And so keeping that open as well. So
Have you ever like written like a spec for Family Guy? Like, is that something that would be important? Or I'm just curious about like kind of like getting everything out there.
well, in terms of what it is in the industry, I'm not going to speak to, but personally, I wrote a spec script of Family Guy years ago. They never read it. And then recently I wrote an episode of Family Guy just to see because I've been there for
That's
years
what I kind of
and
meant. Yeah, but go ahead.
yeah, I know the showrunners there, but like reached out to them and was just like, hey, I wrote a script or I have an idea, and they have one of the largest writing staffs in the whole
Yeah,
industry. They've got like 22 staff writers, and they only write 20 episodes a season. So the showrunner Rich gave me a very kind response where he's just like we're struggling to give the people already employed
gotcha.
scripts,
Yeah.
and totally reasonable. And I've got a great job there, so I wasn't going to push too hard on the subject,
Yeah.
but
No,
yeah,
I was
I
just
did.
thinking more about your like your kind of like your resume,
Mhm.
like having a writing credit on the show would be help you pitch your show even more, I guess, right? So, but then
Yeah, I think luckily just being a storyboard artist there is enough to perk up some ears, like because I have been lucky enough to talk to some people, some executives without representation. Like I don't have agent or manager. I've gotten differing opinions on the
Mhm.
subject, but I've been able to talk with 20th and Hulu because I'm in the Disney network,
Gotcha.
right? So yeah, I would love to get a writing credit on there, but I'm also not gonna ruffle too many feathers. They've been kind to me.
Gotcha. Well, on that note, let's talk again when you get your next film out there or whenever. I think that you're fantastic, and yeah, you have it's a great story that you have so far, and it's a really great proof of concept. Let's put it that way for a
Awesome.
television
Thank you
show.
so much.
So I wish you the ultimate best of success.
That's great. Thank you so much. And yeah, hope to talk again.
Thanks for doing this.
Awesome. Thank you.